Okay, so I have more information that's currently downloading. And so we're putting this video out. And so bear with me as I collect my thoughts because I have information streaming at the same time as I'm talking. But what I want to talk about is divine feminine and divine masculine energy. And what I think is going to happen by the time I'm finished talking, whatever comes out of my mouth, you'll probably have a better understanding of yourself, why you are the way you are, why you have certain sort of like dominant traits, and also why your relationships are the way they are. So essentially what I downloaded was that us as humans, we have a very misunderstood view of what divine masculine and divine feminine is. We have misunderstood divine feminine energy to only be held by women, and that divine masculine energy is only held by men, and that's incorrect. And so what Spirit wanted me to remind you all is that this body, right, like it's just a vessel. It's a vehicle. It's like a ship moving through the ocean, and that's all that it is. It does not matter what your genitalia is. That does not factor anywhere into an equation of whether or not you are divine masculine or divine feminine, right? We are whole when we incarnate. We are both divine masculine and both divine feminine. And outside of this incarnation, we are balanced, right? Because you have to think of as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. We are everything. We are everything all at once. Our natural state of equilibrium is balance, specifically divine balance. And you have divine balance through a balance of divine masculine and divine feminine energies. When we incarnate, one of the many things that we're supposed to learn here or do here is restore the balance of divine masculine and divine feminine energy. Through society, pop culture, whatever, right? We have misunderstood what it means to have a balance and a sort of cohesion of both of those energies. And through the development of civilization, we now, for whatever reason, believe that if you have a set of boobs, right, that means that you must be the feminine. And that if you have a penis, then that means that you must be the masculine. And so what's happening is we're having women out there doing everything. Right? They're the doers. They're accomplishing everything. They're going to school. They're getting the jobs. They're making the money. They're taking care of the family. They, a lot of the times now are the heads of household, even if the men don't actually want to respect them for what it is that they do, right? Women are the ones that are bringing home the money, that are putting the food on the table, that are educating. Women are the ones that are the go-getters. Men, these days I find to be sort of the more sensitive type. And we have this sort of term that we call like the toxic masculinity. And, men are starting to feel unappreciated. They're starting to feel like they're not being heard. They're starting to feel like they're not being seen, that they're damned if they do, that they're damned if they don't, that they're starting to feel lost in terms of where they're supposed to be in their manhood and where society is granting them a place. And I was asking Spirit about like, what's going on? This, like, why is there such a shift? And Spirit told me it's never that it's shifted. There was never necessarily a time where men were fully within their divine masculine and then they fell out of it. The issue was that we misinterpreted what divine masculine meant. We thought that because you had a certain set of genitalia, that automatically meant that you were supposed to be a masculine. But because these bodies are only vessels, it does not matter. Men can incarnate. You can incarnate as a man, but you are supposed to be holding the divine feminine energy. Women can incarnate as a woman, but they're supposed to be expressing the divine masculine. And if you really kind of zoom out and you think about it as a test, right? Because that's kind of what life is, right? Life is like this big esoteric school, right? The ultimate test is to be a woman representing the divine masculine and to be a man representing the divine feminine and having to remember that is what's actually occurring, right? And so before I keep going, I want to touch on like the sort of divine masculine feminine thing for a minute and like the balance of it. So a while ago, I want to say maybe about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, I was in my room minding my business and your girl just slipped right on out of her body, like astral. And I was like, whoa, because that happens from time to time where I just slip out on accident. And I was being drawn to go into my living room. And so I walked into my living room, and I was like in the astral plane. So when you're astraling, for anybody that doesn't know, it's a little bit weird in the sense of like the colors look different. Spatial sort of dimensions are a little bit different because you're in a different dimension, right? And this beam of light appeared in the middle of my living room. And it was kind of like this, it was like a cylinder. And the cylinder started really skinny and it started to get really, really wide. And then out of that cylinder, these light, like specks of light started to shoot off, and they started to materialize, and they materialized into these really gigantic blue beings. And I was terrified. I was so afraid. I was like, oh my God, I cannot do this. They were huge. And they looked down on me, and then there was two of them. And I freaked out about it. And so they quickly disappeared. And I was like, oh my God, what was that? Initially, what I did was call them light beings because they appeared out of a beam of light. And so I called them light beings. As of today, I believe that really what it was my star family. I believe that they were Vegans because I do believe that I'm from the Vegan star system. Like I'm a Vegan star seed. And so they actually have never appeared to me like that before. So typically when they want to speak to me, they speak to me from very far away, and it's sort of more of a telepathic communication or whatever. But when I would talk to them, one thing I realized is that there was always two of them. There was always one that was a mouthpiece and one that was in the back. And initially when I had looked at them, I had interpreted at that time that the person that was talking, or the being that was talking, was the masculine energy, and that the one sort of standing behind that being was the feminine energy. Even though they sort of looked the same, it wasn't that the feminine energy had like long flowing hair. It was just what I had interpreted based off of my own social programming and conditioning, that the being in the front, of course, has to be the man, right? And but one day I had said to them, I said, why are there always two of you? When one would want to talk to me about something, they always showed up with two. It was never just the one would appear and then say what they have to say, and then they would go about their business. And I said, why are there always two of you? And both of them smiled at me, and they kind of, what I interpreted to be like a light shrug, was like, well, because it's divine balance. And they said it in such a way where it was like, duh, like it's divine balance. And then that was it. And they kind of faded away, and that struck me. And the energetic impression that they had left was like, everything has to be in a state of balance. If it's not in a state of balance, then it doesn't exist, right? And so one thing about the universe and how the universe works is that the universe is a series of successful equations. Every successful equation repeats themselves, and you can see successful equations everywhere you go. When you look up into the sky and there's lightning in the sky, and you think about what it looks like in the sky and how it branches off, right? They look like little branches on a tree. But then you look at a tree and you see the branches. When you look at a heart and its veins, they look like branches. When you look at an ant colony, it's like branches. If you are in a plane and you're flying and you happen to be flying over a coastline, you'll see that the land has a tendency to split out into the water like a series of branches. Successful equations repeat themselves. When an equation stops being successful, it stops repeating itself. And then we end up facing extinction. And that's what always happens in the animal kingdom. And so and you're going to see why I'm saying what it is and I'm saying, but what I feel is happening is that the human race has stopped being a successful equation. And Spirit has already told me that we have already overstayed our welcome, and that we already was supposed to die out. And when they told me that, it was incredibly sad, and I cried for a solid 2 hours because they showed me a lot of different images of what really was supposed to happen and how it stopped itself. And I may talk about that later. I decided that I wasn't going to really go into details about it now because some people may not be really ready to receive that message. And I had asked Spirit if I should share it, and they said, yeah, you can share it, but I've made a decision on my own just to wait a little bit longer until we get more people that have woken up and they're sort of in a stable place where they can receive what it is that I'm going to say, right? But if we go back to the equations, I do believe that humans have stopped being a successful equation. And we have seen this happen in other areas of the United Kingdom or the animal kingdom without sort of verifying that that is what's happening to them, and without, due to ego, accepting the fact that the same thing could happen to us because we are still a part of the animal kingdom. Humans, for whatever reason, feel like we are outliers or that we reside outside of the animal kingdom, and that's not necessarily the case, right? So one, let me quickly pivot back to divine masculine and divine feminine energies, right? Society, for whatever reason, has convinced women that we are the lesser of the species, that we are the weaker of the species, that we're the less smarter of the species. But if you look at other areas of the animal kingdom, you would see that the female aspect of the species are the doers. They are the workers. Those are the workhorses, the workforces, the powerhouses, right? You know, we are taught in school that, you know, back during tribal days, it's the men that go out and they hunt and they kill and they bring back the food for the tribe. It's the men that keep the tribe alive, and that all women do are just pick some berries because they have some time, right? Well, the part of the story that people are not telling you is that in most of these ancient civilizations, women were responsible for the majority of the caloric intake of the entire tribe, meaning that women were responsible for the majority of food that entered the mouths of everyone in the tribe. So men have been the ones that were hunting, but they weren't necessarily all that successful at it, right? Fast forward to today. Anyone that dates a guy that likes to go hunting, anyone that dates a guy that likes to go fishing, how many times has that man had come home without a kill, right? What they're doing is repeating an unsuccessful equation. And because women know that they probably aren't going to bring home anything, what do? We go to the store and we get food other ways in order to make sure that we can satisfy the caloric intake of that mouth, right? If you look at prides of lions, right? Male lions do not hunt. It's just the female lions that hunt. It's the female lions that bring back the food. If you look at bees, right? A bee colony is not made up of male bees. Male bees have one purpose, that's to mate with the queen bee. That's it. They're called drones. When they finish mating, the inside explodes, they fall out of the sky, right? A hive is full of female bees. Those are the worker bees. Those female bees pollinate the entire world. And those female bees are responsible for our life right now. Female bees, not male bees. Black widows, they mate, right? And then doesn't the black widow spider like rip the head off of the male spider and then he dies and like that's the end of it? This is the equation that is successful. And that is the equation that is repeating itself throughout the animal kingdom. And what's happening is we as humans have an ego that's so big that we can't accept that perhaps that could happen with us as well. That perhaps one of the energies can be so out of balance that the energy chooses to do away with it, right? This is not to say that people that represent the masculine energy are not important. This is to say that it's out of balance. And when it's out of balance, it's no longer successful. And when it's no longer successful, there's no need for it anymore. And the animal kingdom finds a way to do away with it. So what I would suggest people do is to ask yourself, are you someone that is harnessing the masculine energy, or you are someone that's harnessing the feminine energy? We all have both aspects of it. However, there is usually an energy that we have a tendency to lean more so into than others, and that's okay. These days, what I'm noticing is that women have a tendency to lean more so into their masculine energies, right? We are the ones producing the children, but we are also the caretakers. We're the providers. Like I said before, we're the ones putting the food on the table, right? Men, people representing the masculine energy right now, have a tendency to be a lot more in touch with their emotions. They have a tendency to be in touch with a lot more of what it is that they feel. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. When you are in touch with your emotions and when you are in touch with what you feel, what that means is that you are harnessing the energy that allows you to be more receptive, that allows you to receive, right? The issue is, due to society and societal programming, people who are representing the feminine energy, but presenting as the masculine, i.e. men, they are not in a position where they can receive because society has taught them that that is not their job, right? And so you have women over there representing the masculine energies trying to give, trying to do, and we have men who are not in a position where they can receive it, right? And so women are angry. Men are angry. Men are angry because they feel like they're supposed to be representing the energies that they see that their woman is representing. Women are angry because we're trying to do, because we're trying to protect, because we're trying to care for, because those are the energies that we're representing and it's not being received. We have all misunderstood and misinterpreted the fact that just because you are in a certain vessel that has a certain set of genitalia, that does not mean that was the energy that you incarnated to represent. The idea is that we're supposed to find balance between the masculine and the feminine energies, regardless of what it is that you're presenting as. And as soon as we realize that how you present has nothing to do with the energy that you chose to incarnate with, the easier and the better off that all of us would be. There's another aspect of this, and I want to quickly let you guys go. In other civilizations, women, or those representing the feminine energies, were the ones that commanded the armies. And typically, those are the ones that commanded armies of men. Now, some of those ancient civilizations exist on Earth, but a lot of these civilizations that I'm talking about are actually extraterrestrial. I do know I've done that once. In one of my past lives, I was a commander and was a commander of an all-male army, but I do also know that I did not do it on this particular planet. I'm very aware of that, hyper aware of that. I've always been aware of that for years, and I was incredibly confused about it when I had initially remembered it, because in our societal programming, that can't be. And funny enough, in this lifetime, I work really well with men. And I have a way of speaking to men that if I ask him to do something, or if I request or whatever, that he do something or that he move in a certain way, men do it. And it's not even in a manipulative way. It has always been in a very respectful way of like, yep, she said what she said. I respect what it is that she said. I'm going to act on it. And I've been that way since I was young, since I was a teenager. I always noticed that how I instructed the boys in my class and how they responded to it was very different than how they responded to other girls telling them what to do, right? Girls, and I'm saying girls because this was much younger, this is not necessarily an issue that I have with now, would call me bossy, but I was never really called bossy by the boys. And now, as an adult, if anyone has an issue with me, it's usually a woman. Oh, she's too this or she's too that. Because women, we need to learn to love each other, right? And we're working on it. It's part of our own sort of collective trauma that we brought in with us, and we're working on healing. Men don't necessarily, that I'm aware of, have those thoughts of she's too this, she's too that, she's too aggressive, she's too bossy, she's too assertive, she's too this, she's too much, right? Unless they may be trying to date me and they haven't yet found their own divine masculine and feminine balance, they may be turned off by it. But typically what I find is that men are usually attracted to this. And women, this is another thing, those of you representing feminine energies, those of you who feel that you have sort of a powerful aura or an aura of authority will find that you have a tendency to attract men who have a tendency to be a lot more sensitive. Why? Because in that moment, you're representing the divine masculine energies. Our sensitive brothers, right? Those are the ones that are representing the divine feminine energies. And if you are attracting those men into your life, what you're doing is attracting sort of the balance of it, right? Think of it as like magnets. That's why they have a tendency to be attracted to that. And why you probably have a tendency to be attracted to them as well, because if you had two people who were both the doers, both in the divine masculine, it's just not a good fit. Same thing if you had two people that are both in the divine feminine, it's just not a good fit, right? For all of you that feel like you are representing more of that divine feminine, but you're presenting as a man, you will probably find that you have a tendency to be attracted to women who are representing the divine masculine, who appear to be somewhat powerful, somewhat authoritative, somewhat maybe more of a teacher, maybe more of a guide, women that have protective instincts or sort of like boss babe type of energy, because what you're looking at is the opposite of your energy. If you're representing the feminine and she's representing the masculine in that way, then you are going to be attracted, right? It's a magnet. Your genitalia does not determine if you fall more or determine which side of the divine you fall into, whether it's masculine or whether it's feminine. And as soon as you allow yourself to get out of your own head about it, the better off your relationships will be, and the easier it'll be to connect with other people, right? The easier it'll be to find partners that get you. If you are a man, but you're representing a lot of those feminine aspects to yourself, and if you ended up on this video, right? So if you are someone representing the feminine, but you present as a man and you've ended up on this video, then this is actually confirmation that you represent the feminine, right? And it would make sense, because that would mean that you're more intuitive. If you're not intuitive, you wouldn't have ended up here. If you weren't some sort of form of psychic, you wouldn't have ended up here, right? Like energy attracts like energy. The best thing that you can do for yourself is accept the fact that you are both. You are divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy, but that you have a tendency, for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter what the reason is, to lean more heavily into your feminine aspects, your feminine energy. And that makes sense. And so if you want balance in your partnerships, then you probably would do better to seek someone who's representing more of those masculine energies. And if you are currently seeing someone that's like that, allow yourself to process the trauma caused from societal programming and expectations on what you're supposed to be just because you have something in between your legs, right? Because that's not true. And the same thing for you women that are presenting with more of the masculine energies. Allow yourself to be able to sit in that energy unapologetically. Because the one thing is, when you are representing certain energies and you're doing it naturally without forcing yourself to do it, that means that there are skill sets in that set of energies that you're really, really good at, that you're naturally good at. And if you are in a position where you are forcing yourself to be more subdued, or to take a step back, or to pull back out of those energies that are naturally for you, all of those natural skills and talents that you have that reside in those energies, you won't harness them. And the thing about harnessing natural talent and skills is that that's where the money is. Quite literally, that's where your abundance is. That's where all that material and financial success lies. And if you are fighting it, then you're not going to allow yourself to, in order to harness it or to achieve it. This body is a vessel. That's it. You may present as a man, you may present as a woman, but that does not have anything to do with whether or not you are divine masculine or divine feminine. The sooner you allow yourself to realize that the divine masculine and divine feminine has nothing to do with the actual body that you're in, it'll be easier for you to allow yourself to fall into a state of balance. And for all of my people that are out there representing divine feminine energies, but you're doing so presenting as a man, allow yourself to fully fall into that, right? Allow yourself to find someone who understands it, that understands divine masculine and feminine, right? And because that'll create a safe space for you to feel and to receive, to nurture, to love, and that will restore balance. What's happening is that you have people who are rejecting their energies that they are that they're expressing, and what's happening through that is it's causing very unsuccessful equations. And the universe does not like unsuccessful equations. When an equation it becomes unsuccessful, it becomes extinct, right? And I'm going to say something a little controversial, but I'm going to leave you here because this is going to be a little bit of a tidbit and an aha moment, because I've been noticing this for a while, for years, and I haven't said anything about it, but it's time to now talk about it. Reproduction is becoming increasingly difficult on both the male side and the female side, right? Right? Unsuccessful equations can't repeat themselves. The best thing that you all can do for yourself is to accept whatever energy that it is that you're expressing. and to allow yourself to seek partners who can accept their energy as well, right? And to now not be the toxic person because you're fighting your divine feminine, or you're fighting your divine masculine, or have partners that are fighting it too, because that's not balance. And when it's not balanced, it's not sustainable. It's not a state of divine balance at all. Okay? So I'm gonna leave you there.